The real reason the Toronto Raptors drafted Collin Murray-Boyles has been revealed, as Bobby Webster spoke out on the draft selection after last night's NBA draft, and he revealed some major insights in terms of the Raptors' approach to this draft and to this roster moving forward in general. So we're going to break down everything Bobby Webster had to say, what we can expect now in terms of the next moves for the Toronto Raptors, including in tonight's second round, and frankly, why I'm fairly excited with this approach despite all of the different reporting that has been going on. So lots of stuff to break down. Folks, if you don't want to miss a single thing happening with this Raptors team and you want to join the community, over 38,000 of us, appreciate every single one of you getting us to that number last night. But if you want to join the community, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. It's completely free. Just hit that button down below and you won't miss a single thing going on with this Toronto Raptors team. Updates, rumors, reports, everything in between. But let's dive into it because the Toronto Raptors made a surprising selection last night in going with Collin Murray-Boyles with their number 9 overall selection. Now, this is not surprising because he's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of the reporting, a lot of the discourse was around Kamil Malawach, who was still available at that number 9 overall pick, as well as Noah Essengay. But the Raptors went with Collin Murray-Boyles, and a lot of the draft insiders are saying this is a nice pick. Again, a lot of casual outlets are kind of saying, hey, this is not a good selection, this is not a good move. So what's really going on? Well, Bobby Webster had a lot to say about this pick. He came out and said, we had our eye on him going into the season as he was a 2-year college player. He has elite defense. He's versatile. He has good hands. He has a chance to be a really good defender out there in the NBA. And of course, this is just one quote kind of summarized there from Bobby Webster, but he was really harping on the fact that this man has extremely high defensive upside. He is big, he's mobile, his instincts are really good, and he's a really high IQ on the offense and defensive end because athletic intangibles are one thing. And this is one thing I brought up with Noah Essengay. I'm like, okay, if the upside's there, it's cool and all that stuff. But things need to come together as a basketball player. And Collin Murray-Boyles is one of those guys that has that, things coming together, especially in the defensive end, already paired alongside with those, strong athletic frames and everything you'd want from an elite defender out there in the NBA. There's a lot of analogies to OG Anunoby, how he was discussed when the Toronto Raptors draft him and stuff. So again, I'm not going to dive into too many comparisons here right now, but CMB is a guy where Bobby Webster was adamant and sort of saying this dude's defensive upside is extremely, extremely high. And he also discussed how, of course, the Toronto Raptors had the number 9 overall selection. CMB was higher on their board. He wasn't their number 9th ranked prospect. He was higher on the board and obviously came down to the Toronto Raptors at number 9. So that's a very, very positive sign for him to come out and directly state. Went on to say that sometimes we forget Brandon Ingram is coming on this team. You think about the offense-defense balance of this team. He's not running from it. He knows it's something he wants to work on. So this was essentially in response to how CMB will have an impact on this squad in regards being a threat for this team offensively. As we broke down yesterday in terms of his stats, in terms of everything, he's not a good three-point shooter right now. It's not something that's really in his bag. He's a 26% three-point shooter. Of course, you want more details on the specific player of CMB, which we'll talk about a ton over the summer, but did a deep dive on it yesterday. But he's not a great shooter, and there's concerns about, his immediate offensive fit and offensive impact. And then Webster came out and said, it's not really something worried about, and the Raptors have a lot of offense coming into this team now with Brandon Ingram, obviously traded at the deadline, essentially like a free agent acquisition because, he didn't play a single second for the Toronto Raptors last year. So basically, CMB can come in and, apply that defensive pressure and, not worry about this Raptors team having to rely on him as an essential part of the offense here right now. And, we talk more about this sort of discourse and things like that. He said, we're still in talent acquisition mode, big picture, so we're not worried about his position, and we try to find talent. So this is the whole approach. This is the real reason that he was selected by this team. Of course, he's an elite defender. This is something we already knew. But the real reason is the Raptors aren't rushing this rebuild. They are not trying to push into a different situation. And this is my concern because, we hear all this stuff going around about a big fish, about trying to get better, about trying to get to that next level this current season, and all that type of stuff. And that alludes to the fact that, hey, the Toronto Raptors are going to try to rush into something. And a lot of people that didn't want to see that, weren't on that quest for Kevin Durant, weren't on Masai Ujiri's journey to acquire KD here right now, they were making the argument that it doesn't make sense to rush the rebuild. It doesn't make sense to trade all these assets, trade all these pieces to get a guy that doesn't want to be here, that won't be here long term, and is old, right? So that was a lot of criticism there. And there was concerns even on my end, who, I'm cool with getting the Raptors as good as possible for next season, but there's concern from pretty well everyone that, okay, we might rush this rebuild. The last couple seasons where we really started stockpiling talent, getting all these young guys, and setting a foundation of something really good, we might be rushing into something that's not going to lead to an NBA championship or multiple years of finals runs, or whatever the goal is, for this team. So the Raptors, they aren't in that rush. They're not worried about position stuff. And Webster also addressed, I don't have the quote pulled up here now, but in his post-season presser about how Murray-Boyles will be able to fit with Scottie Barnes. Because, of course, Scottie's going to be that guy that's going to be on this team for a very, very long time. Like, it's under contract. Unless Giannis is available, it's going to be Scottie Barnes out there on this team for at least the next few seasons. So it's important to see how a guy, coming into your draft and as a rookie, how he's going to be able to impact the team. Well, Scottie's pretty excited. He posted a picture of Collin Murray-Boyles out there in the mix saying, hey, let's get it squad. So, posted that on his story. Scottie seems pretty excited. So, but also, Bobby Webster came out and directly said, if I get all these animations up here correctly, that, hey, CMB as well as Scottie Barnes are extremely high IQ basketball players. And you can stack IQ. That's his direct quote. And, it's not Immanuel Quickley, you can stack intelligence, basketball intelligence. And CMB, Scottie Barnes have high IQ. It's the same way Jakob Poeltl has had the best season of his career, despite not having an extremely open floor space, which is the ideal kind of positional structure out there. But there's a lot of high IQ basketball players out there on this team right now. And his passing vision, CMB's passing vision, his ability to drive, his ability to defend multiple positions, and all these types of things, the Raptors are in that position here right now where they're trying to get the most talented, best players that fit their system and all that here right now, and we'll figure it all out after, right? Of course, there is hopes of the Raptors being better next season, and you have Brandon Ingram, you have guys that are going to, fill in the weaknesses for what we could have gotten with that number 9 overall pick, but Webster also said it's tough for a rookie to come in and be an immediate impact player. So get the most long-term talent, get the guy you think is going to be best out there in the long run, and then go from there. So that's been the Raptors' approach. Bobby Webster also came out and said that he's a really good defender. We know he's a really good around the rim. If the shot comes around, that changes the trajectory. So really, if that jump shot becomes something that's reliable, if that jump shot becomes something that you can look at and say, hey, this Raptors team is not going to completely be a mess out there around the three-point line, that is going to be huge for this Raptors squad. Of course, that's a big if. Even without it, I've seen a lot of comparisons. I saw one comparison out there. Do I even have the graphic anymore? But to Thaddeus Young, Chatty Thaddeus Young. But so, that's kind of, if he doesn't develop the jump shot, Thaddeus Young is still a very long tenured player out there in the NBA. As much as we want like a super high upside guy, and I think CMB has a super high upside, but even as like kind of, I don't want to say floor, because Thaddeus Young was a really good NBA player, but mid-floor being that type of guy, I don't think that's bad by any stretch of the imagination going into the league. But he's a player I'm excited about. I think it was a good pick. A lot of the smart NBA insiders coming out and saying this is a good pick for Toronto, so that's a huge positive there. One thing that's, I'm seeing a lot of people bag on this pick out there on social media and stuff. Toronto ended up posting this, which I don't think was like smart, because if you didn't see it, essentially when he was drafted, Collin Murray-Boyles, it looked like he was disappointed. But this guy, Julian, I don't know who he is, but shout out Julian's World out there on Twitter. But I thought he summed it up pretty well. But he's very clearly relieved he finally got picked. Look at his smile, his girls, his grandma reactions, all that stuff. Hate Twitter, man. Congrats to CMB for enjoy the Toronto Raptors, enjoy the special night. And Bobby Webster came out and said that they didn't tell CMB that he was going to get drafted by the squad. So you're coming out there and yelling, whatever. It's like a sigh of relief. He wasn't frustrated. You could see it in his face. He wasn't mad. It wasn't this. People are going out there on stream. I missed it live, but say, oh, he doesn't want to be here. Doesn't want to do this. I'm putting that to bed. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's the case. And especially in his, people are saying it's like damage control post-game interviews. I don't think any of that's the case whatsoever. Bobby Webster said that they probably need to leak some stuff more, probably need to tell the players, the agents, or something like that so they don't have crazy reactions. But for a guy that was projected to go from anywhere, where the Raptors were selecting, I guess, but really anywhere from there to like, I seen mock drafts have him in the 20s, right? Seeing him go in the top 10, seeing him go that high, you're going to be hyped. You're going to say this. You're going to do whatever. Like, it's going to be a relief and all that. So, it's definitely, regardless, even if you think he was frustrated, he went to Toronto and let people in the comments there. It's way better than what Ace Bailey said about going to the Utah Jazz. Like, oh, I don't want to be here, but it's what it is, whatever, right? Like, his quote post game was pretty wild. I don't have it brought up, but it was a pretty wild quote there. But CMB, big piece, real reason, the Raptors aren't rushing this rebuild. They want the best player available, and they think he can fit well around Scottie Barnes and, of course, Brandon Ingram. So lots of stuff to cover. We got the second round coming tonight, so another selection coming from the Toronto Raptors likely. So make sure you keep it locked to Raptors Digest. We'll cover it all. Hopefully my camera doesn't die mid-video on this one. But anyways, I'm signing out.